Tundra Media presents The Mayor Helps, with the Mayor of Victoria, British Columbia, Lisa Helps. Have your say. Send your questions and comments to themayorhelps.com. They could be included in next week's
Victoria
show.
Businesses to know that we're working.
And now, here's your host, from beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Dave Hatt.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Mayor Helps podcast with Mayor Lisa Helps from Victoria, BC, Canada. This episode, we actually have another mayor once we get to our conversation with the mayor, and so stay tuned for that. It's June 24th, 2020. COVID continues to shine a light on homelessness as a major issue in our society, and it is also creating and has created massive problems for our economy. It's quite scary being a small business owner. What are you seeing, Mayor Helps, as the most pressing challenges this week, maybe as they relate to Main Street businesses, or just in terms of what you're doing and what your day-to-day is like?
Well, as I've been walking back and forth from home to City Hall, I keep thinking, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? Are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? And by we, I kind of mean the collective, all of us. There has been a very big uptake on the Build Back Victoria program. By the end of last week, we had over 40 applications from small businesses, both retailers and restaurateurs, to open their businesses out into public space. By all counts, it's going pretty well. And people seem to have money to spend. The patios that are opening aren't empty. So I don't know if that's the CERB or some businesses doing well, or, visitors from Up Island. So I'm not sure. And homelessness continues to be a challenge in Victoria and in cities across the country. And I think, one of the things that's challenging about homelessness is there's just nowhere for people to go. Shelters are still at half capacity or closed because of physical distancing measures. The province has bought a number of motels, but there don't seem to be any more purchases on the horizon. And so really it's how do we live through this in the best way possible with the minimal impact to everybody involved, including, business owners downtown and including people who are homeless.
Yeah, one of the senses that I get anyways, people are just tired of it, right? They just
So,
want it to be
yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Like can we not get back to some semblance of normalcy? And I get the frustration. It's certainly, it's rearing its ugly head occasionally with me. And I speak to other business owners. And so I think maybe that's where that comes from, is that, people are saying, well, the homelessness, like it's on people's minds a lot. And they're saying, well, as a small business owner, how come we can't get help? But there's a perception. And, when the city does things like, the Build Back, it's Victoria, where you've afforded small businesses the opportunity as city council to expand their square footage. And so in so doing, I haven't seen any leases, but I don't think their rent has gone up in those particular cases. They're
We're not charging an application fee. We're not charging for any of the space. The only thing that we're charging for is if they want the city public works yard to build them their patio for them. We're just charging only for materials, not even for labor. So we're really doing, what we can do is support small business. What we can't do is solve homelessness. And so we're trying to focus our efforts where we can actually have an impact.
That's a great way to put it. And I think on that note, let's move on to our next segment of the show. And thank you so much. And we'll see you on the other side.
Have your say. Send your questions and comments to themayorhelps.com. They could be included in next week's show.
All right. Our next guest on Ask the Mayor is Scott Murphy from Vitality Coaching. Scott, meet Mayor Helps, and go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this forum, to have this opportunity. I know there's a tight crunch, so I'm going to get right to it. I appreciate your time. Yes, I'm Scott Murphy with Vitality Coaching. So what I did a quick Facebook poll. I canvassed people on there and came up with the most popular question. I'm going to ask that.
Awesome. Oh, that's so great.
Wow, homework. Cool.
So from our people downtown, other business owners. This one, I'm going to cut to the chase. The question is from Morgan Andrews. Why is the city putting out so much money for hotels for the homeless and not local businesses? Seems to be there's a perception of that. There's business like Mole, for example. And why is there not enough help for people who are just putting so much work and time and trying to keep everyone in that, in the economy working, even though there's subsidies and that kind of thing. And there's this capacity where they can put in like a third of the people in the restaurants, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess the question is from that to that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think probably there's a bit of a communications gap because the city, over the last few weeks, we've had 40 applications for patios in public spaces. We're doing it all for free. We're processing applications within days, not weeks. And we've seen a huge uptake. So I think maybe if people don't know yet about the Build Back Victoria program, you can direct them to victoria.ca/biz resources. Our staff are working full out. There are patios open on Government Street. There are patios like Pagliacci's is open right into Broad Street. It's huge. 2% Jazz, they've got an outdoor patio in parking spaces. So I think the city's efforts right now are focused almost exclusively on supporting business through the Build Back Victoria program. The city's not spending any money on hotels. We're not spending any time on that. That's what the province is doing. So, but obviously there's a bit of a gap in communications. We had our staff go and council made the decision a couple weeks ago to do the Build Back Victoria program, and the next day our staff fanned out across downtown. So maybe I should call Josh at Mole. I guess his situation's a bit challenging because there's a bike lane right in front of his shop. So I don't know what that means, but maybe he could open some space in Centennial Square or Bastion. I don't know what the answer is for that particular shop, but for people, maybe you could go back to your Facebook page and put the Build Back Victoria link through the Biz Resources page, because I would like it. That's almost all we're doing right now is helping our businesses through what's happening.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Gap communication is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, but if you could be the messenger and take that back, and our staff are working around the clock on this kind of stuff. And yeah, so thank you.
Thanks for the question, Scott. And we've got, through the Mayor Helps, we've got social media and online presence, and I'll reach out to you after this conversation is over. We can connect you with that as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
And thanks for crowdsourcing the question. I love it.
You're welcome.
So in this segment of Ask the Mayor, we've got Gina Donaldson, and she is from Personal Passage Planning. Gina, go ahead and ask your question of the mayor.
Is how you see, looking at the influx of both young professionals and seniors who are downsizing into our downtown community, what sort of services or businesses should be there that we're not seeing there yet?
That is a great question. I'll give you my answer in a moment, but I want to tell you first about Victoria 3.0. If you haven't read it, I'd suggest you read through it. I'm just going to grab it right now so I can flash the cover and see if I can do that and answer at the same time. Victoria 3.0 is an economic action plan for the city's future for the next 20 years. And one of the first items in this plan is a 2020 action. There it is. Victoria 3.0, and you can find it at victoria.ca/prosperity, is to do a retail strategy for downtown to answer exactly that question, because downtown is changing. So I don't know. I mean, more daycares for sure. That's what we've heard. More dentists, more doctors, more those kinds of things that people need in their daily lives. The kinds of things that you'd find in any neighborhood, really, because as much as downtown is the commercial center of the city, it's becoming a neighborhood. So butcher, grocery store. So all those are some of the things that we've been hearing, but we're going to be developing, probably starting in the last quarter of this year, a retail strategy to ask downtown residents exactly that. What is it that you need? One of the things we've heard a lot of is more public spaces for kids to run around and be free, which is a challenge in a built-out downtown, but we're going to rise to the challenge. So those are some of my ideas, but obviously you hear from your clients. So what do you think? What do they need?
I think a lot of the things that the services that they currently have in their communities, like in Oak Bay or in Saanich, and looking to replicate those. So as you say, the essentials such as easy walking access to physicians, dentists, restaurants, and certainly daycare and green spaces, because if green space isn't within a short distance, then it can be more challenging for some of our senior members. But also I think that we have a rather, in some cases, fairly affluent community that is looking for vibrancy for seniors. And there's a lot of community centers. For instance, we have in the Monterey Center, for example, community centers for seniors to gather and come together, because lots of people don't necessarily have a good social network, and sometimes they're starting again, or they're coming into this new community. So how do they meet people and then become more part of the downtown community?
Interesting. So you think a downtown senior center would be something that would be a good idea?
I find it's really helpful. We have Goward House just down the street from us, and it allows people to come together to learn new things, to participate in appropriate physical activity, come for tea, come for lunch, not be alone, and maybe bring a meal home. Because for some people, that may be the only social interaction that they have.
Yeah, that's great. That one I hadn't heard of, so that's always good to get these ideas. There used to be or the Silver Threads used to be downtown, and then they moved out to near the Jubilee Hospital. But yes, thanks. That's I'm going to tuck that into my thinking cap.
I also think that some of the new facilities that are going up, both the buy to live in and rent to live in, and the multi-generational living that a lot of the developers have proposed, really calls for that diversity of services downtown. But I think entrepreneurs are still trying to figure out, what does that really look like for me? What do these people need, and how can I help them? And I'm thinking that it may mean different sort of social networks. So not just the sort of care that you get if you need physical assistance in the home, but companionship or walking tours or something like that, to help people get out and enjoy Victoria, because we have the benefit of an all year round, easy to get around, safe environment.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe almost somebody to kind of curate downtown for seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it.
It's a great idea, Gina. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Thanks. Take care. Have a great day, Gina. We'll chat with you soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mayor Helps.
You're welcome. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have your say. Send your questions and comments to themayorhelps.com. They could be included in next week's show. And now, Mayor Lisa Helps sits down with this week's special guest.
Today on The Mayor Helps, we have another mayor on the line. And Canada is so large that she is fully 4 time zones away and over 5,500 kilometers away as well. This is Mayor Dawn Arnold of Moncton, New Brunswick. Welcome to The Mayor Helps with Lisa Helps, Mayor Arnold.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
So Moncton is a city of approximately 85,000, and your community obviously through COVID is facing similar challenges to what we were seeing in Victoria with homeless encampments and the reopening of the Main Street economy. I myself am a business owner here in Victoria, and so a common thread for this show is how small businesses interact with municipal governments. So just wanting to know, I did read a little bit, but I wanted to hear from you how things are going with the reopening of the economy. How are the Main Street businesses, the barbershops, the hair salons, the cleaners, how are they doing?
Well, I would say that the barbershops and hair salons are doing very well, because that seemed to be a real need during this pandemic. People were hair obsessed. So I would say that they're doing well. The bars and restaurants, it's a bit of a challenge. It really is, with the distancing and all of the PPE. And we just voted to make our Main Street one way and have a 2-way bike lane on it to allow for more room for our cafes and restaurants to expand. So we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, it's a challenge, but it's one of those things, there have been some people who have really, really struggled, and there have been other businesses that have never been as busy, so just depending on the needs right now.
It is very interesting, because there's on a microeconomic level, the individual business owner, there are, like my business we're a non-toxic dry cleaner, and I mean, people are working from home, and you see it on social media where our employees are wanting to work from home. So what that means is that's a problem for our business because people aren't getting their clothes, their shirts, their dresses, their blazers pressed to go into work. But you're absolutely right. I've, close friend of mine, she's a hairstylist, and I booked an appointment, and it's literally Canada Day at 8 p.m. is the next time I could get in to see her. It's just nuts. So with some of the things that I've seen with Moncton, how is your community reacting, and how are the small business owners and the greater community reacting and dealing with, you've got a zero tolerance policy on homeless encampments, and that's, I believe, slightly different than what we have here. How is that going?
Well, it's a continuous challenge for sure. We have a number of shelters, but as we all know, shelters are not the answer. And a lot of people are choosing not to stay in our shelters right at the moment. Affordable housing is the way we have to go. And so actually, I had a question for Mayor Helps. I was wondering, have you ever done a social impact audit?
In what way? What does that mean?
Like to just kind of follow the money. Like what we are discovering is we're investing so much into all of this, whether it's our provincial social development, or whether it's even our police, the way that they are called to respond to mental health and addictions issues, or just all of this, like trying to figure out what the total amount is that we are all investing. And I'm talking health, mental health, addictions, policing. What is the total sum of it? Because what we're finding is sometimes when you do these social impact audits, you can free up significant funds to put into affordable housing. So that's something that we're looking at very seriously right now. And I've wondered if you guys have done anything around that.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, we haven't. And I think it's a good idea. We have, for us here, we have money for affordable housing because we came up with a really interesting proposal back in 2016. So it was a bit of teeth pulling, but we've got 13 municipalities in our region, and we convinced everybody, the city of Victoria convinced everyone to put money into a pot. So we created a $30 million pot for affordable housing. And then we went to the federal and provincial governments and asked them to match it, showing this kind of unprecedented solidarity in our region. And they did. So we had $90 million, and then we just got another 10 from ourselves, 10. So we've got $120 million, and that's going to build over 2,000, around 2,000 units of affordable housing, ranging in rents from $375 a month to just below market. And the beauty of the reason it was funded in the first place by Ottawa was because it came out of CMHC's Innovative Housing Innovation Fund. And so all of the buildings are mixed market. So about 20% of each building rents at $375 a month. Another portion are rent geared to income. And then the other units in the building are close to market. And so the higher rents subsidize the lower rents, and there's no ongoing operating subsidy from government. So it's a fantastic program. We've got over 900 units under construction right now. And Ottawa gave us a deadline with our funding that we had to have everything under construction by the end of 2021, although I think with COVID, there's a bit of flexibility. So that program has worked really, really well. And the beautiful thing about it is that we have now control of $120 million. So we don't have to go to Ottawa or the province every time we have a project.
That's fantastic.
It's
wow.
Great. It's really great. Yeah. And I'm happy to share more about that. And if you're, to connect our regional staff with your staff in terms of the mechanics of it, the staff were really, really creative. The first 30 million we were able to basically free up without having to raise taxes because of borrowing room.
Wow. Now that's fantastic. It's new for us. Homelessness is, people who find themselves currently without homes, it's new. We haven't dealt with this a lot in the past. It's probably only in the last 4 or 5 years that it's become an issue for us. So it's new, and it's surprising, and it's shocking for people. So we're going through all of that right now, but people are grappling with it, and we're really trying to find a way forward. And it's a real challenge. It really is.
Yeah. So that's one challenge, particularly probably exacerbated by COVID. But what are some of the other challenges that you're facing in how's your community doing? What's the beat on the street? How are people weathering through this? I'm really curious. And then how are things going coming out of it?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person. Like, human nature is such a fascinating thing. Like, we still have some people who haven't left their places and that are very, very concerned for their health. Often they're in immune compromised states. And then there are other people that are just right out there, doing everything. But what we've really found, and I'm sure is the same for you, is during this pandemic, we've really seen the cracks in our society and our social democracy. Like they're pretty clear now. I don't think anyone realized fully how our schools feed our children. We had to come out with a lunch program immediately, and over, we're a smaller community, but over 750 lunches every day we were taking to neighborhoods where kids just didn't have lunch. So that was pretty big. And even from a mental health perspective, our schools play a really vital role. We've certainly seen across the country, our special care homes, and just how we've let that kind of slip through the cracks. So it's really exposed some of that. And of course, our social inclusion has definitely been, it's glaring now, how we need to build this trust with people and with our citizens. I spoke to a woman yesterday. I've been interviewing all of my chairs of my boards of, agencies, boards and commissions, and just, how's it going? What's going on? What are you seeing? How are you coping? Blah, blah, blah. And I spoke with the chair of our accessibility committee, and she's blind. And so she told me, it's really challenging for her to get on the back of the bus because we were only having entry on the back of the bus. And like that was her life. And that's how she got to the Y. That's how she got to her volunteer job. For a lot of people with, more complex issues, it's been really, really challenging. And then for other families, like they've so enjoyed the opportunity to be together, to cook, and to get to know one another again. So it's really all over the place.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's true that the pandemic kind of exposes or has exposed, and also been harder on people who are already, have some, differentiation from the so-called norm, whether they're, poor or Black or have a disability, or it's a wake-up call, I think, in terms of this notion of building back better.
Yeah. Well, the other, from a small business perspective, what's happening, I've got 2 teenagers, and my one son was lucky enough to get work at an auto body shop. But I remember him telling me, I'm just going to get a job in the summer. And my first reaction was, well, I mean, there might not be a job to get in the summer. And I know that in speaking with friends of mine who own coffee shops, where, the routine of a coffee shop is, especially in Victoria, this is coffee central. You go to the coffee shop in the morning, and you probably go for your coffee break sort of midday. And that's because you're in the office in the surrounding neighborhood. So you're walking down, going and grabbing your Americano. But, friends of mine who own the coffee shops, they're like, I don't know what's going on. And so the places that used to have, as the backbone of the economy, the small businesses where they have 15 employees, he's now down to 2 employees plus himself. So, I've started this as a business during COVID, really trying to monetize it, because I recognize that my other business might not make it. And it's tough when you look at what's going to happen in 2 months when the CERB is done, and what are people going to do? So I'm trying to be positive, and I'm working hard to be that way. But for those of us where there's an uncertainty, there's definitely emotional ups and downs for sure.
Have you found, though, an uptake on, I personally, I've been going to the office, so I've been wearing my regular clothes. I actually need a dry cleaner, and ours are closed, and it's really quite difficult here. But even I found that a lot of people were at home, and they were getting like drapes dry cleaned and stuff like that. Did you see any uptick in anything like that?
I was just speaking with my wife, who's also my partner in the business, and we are noticing that people are bringing in things like draperies and like bedding, but it's significantly less. The bread and butter of our business is the business attire, and so that because people are working from home, and I mean, I get it. If I had the option to work from home as opposed to go in the office, well, I don't know. I'm an office kind of guy, I think, but people want to stay at home because they want to be with their family and their cat and their dog while they're working. And it's a calmer place to be, and they can potentially be more productive. But it's it, like you said, you alluded to, certain businesses are doing gangbusters. I've got another friend of mine who owns a gluten-free bakery, and I mean, her food is remarkable to begin with. So she's killing it because it's comfort food, right? So people want to feel good. They go buy a cake and they sit at home with a fork and they're feeling much better. Right? It's interesting.
Well, it's funny because one of my goals for sure as being mayor was really to create that density and vibrancy in our downtown core. So it's definitely taken a hit. Two of our major employers in our downtown core that bring a lot of bodies in every day, they have no plans of bringing their employees back until September. So that's hard. But what I'm also finding is, while some people really have loved the working from home, it's getting tired. Not everybody likes that. People really miss human interactions. They miss seeing people in 3 dimensions. We had a meeting yesterday and we said, oh, we were thinking of maybe doing it in person in a large boardroom. And everybody's like, yes, that sounds so fantastic. Because you miss a lot on the screen, I find. It's not the same.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's one of the challenges that we're having too, because a lot of our downtown is government workers, and various ministries have, the latest word on the street is that some of them aren't going to come back until January in full force. And there's a large private sector building right across the street from City Hall, the BC Investment Management Corporation, and they've got 600 employees. And even still now, there are about 30 or 40 who've come back out of 600. So it's just killing the lunchtime business for restaurants. But I went to buy some new shoes on Friday, and I was talking with the manager of the shoe store. And she said, I hadn't thought about this perspective, and I it might just be a unique perspective, or it might be more broad, but she said, because there are no provincial employees or few provincial employees coming downtown, it means there's lots of parking, which means that people are starting to come and explore downtown who haven't been downtown in years, whether it's from Up Island or surrounding areas. So she said business was going well. And so I hadn't thought about that perspective. I still think the downtown lunch crowd and downtown business needs the office workers without question. It's an ecosystem, but there are some people who I guess are managing to find the silver linings.
Yeah, that's a really great one. We obsess about parking in Moncton. Like it's
everybody obsesses about parking everywhere.
But it's really cold in Moncton, right? It's not as cold here, so the option to have self-propelled transportation in Victoria is more readily available year-round than it is in Moncton, right?
Oh, well, we are just a car-obsessed community, I would say. Yeah, as someone who stands and waits for the bus, and people come along and they're like, "Are you okay? Can I help you?" Oh
no. How do you change that? Because we need to.
It's education. It's, leading by example. I bike as long, usually from like May to October, and people still think it's crazy, but I mean, just, it's not hard. It's just whatever you get used to, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, one thing with the pandemic, I sure see a lot more people out on the bike trails. So a lot more people are biking. And even I have a 22-year-old son, and he and his friends the other night, they wanted to go down to a brew pub downtown, and they rode their bikes down. Like they never would have done that before, and just had the greatest time. And then they came back and they, "Oh, Mom, I didn't know our trail system was so good. My friends think it's really great." I'm like, yeah, what do you think I've been telling you for years?
Yeah.
So I think if people are just exploring things in new ways, and that's good. Like, are your borders closed? Like we aren't letting anyone in. So it's just really just New Brunswick for us right now. We might have an Atlantic bubble, but you can't go anywhere. If you go outside of our province, you have to quarantine for 14 days when you come back. So tourism is looking pretty New Brunswick based for us this summer.
Yeah, same thing here. The border between Alberta and British Columbia is not officially closed, but people are really encouraged to not cross it unless there's a need. We do have a lot of British Columbia workers who work, not a lot, but enough to make note of it. British Columbians who work in Alberta and come back and forth. But yeah, tourism is really going to be British Columbia based this summer. And the other thing, and I hope that the federal government holds this for quite a while, is we've got the direct connection between Victoria and Washington State, so Seattle and Port Angeles, and just it's just such a disaster in the United States right now. I hope that border stays closed until they kind of pull it together down there. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer. Victoria is very, very tourist based, particularly in the summer, with a lot of visitors from around the world, and the cruise ships, none of which is happening. And so it's really interesting. Our main tourist strip, Government Street, there's been kind of a 30-year conversation about, do we close it to cars or not, and make it a pedestrian only street? And COVID's given us the opportunity to pilot that this summer, not entirely, but it's really pedestrian priority. Same as you, we've got, a couple weeks ago, we gave businesses permission to spill out onto the street. People are constructing all manner of interesting patios right in the street. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
That's great. As they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. No, it's been a real opportunity to, do those things that you've been talking about for years and years and people never thought were possible. But getting back to small business, we are seeing a real uptick. Like, we've talked, like you, I'm sure, a lot about buying local, but people are really dedicated to it right now. Like, whether it's food boxes from local restaurants that are just compiling, a week's supply of all local products, the farmers boxes, like, people are really, really embracing that in a whole new way. So that, I think, is a good outcome of all of this.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's just people have had some time to reflect, and they've had some time to think about, their values, their priorities, and how do we get out of this, and who are we supporting? I think that, on a personal level, I have no desire to. You guys live a lot closer to the United States, but I don't really want to go there right now on a personal level. And I think I want to support things that are made in Canada, things that are made locally. I think, and I think a lot of people are thinking that way right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sure that's happening here. I don't know if I really did observe it kind of in the middle of the pandemic, but I wonder if that's going to continue all the way through. There was a group here, they're called Think Local First. And they started a program where businesses could, for no charge, sell gift cards online. And so people were encouraged to buy gift cards to their favorite business, even if the business was closed. And they saw a huge uptake with that. I think they had about 150 businesses register within a couple of weeks, and lots of online shopping happens. So, but it'll be interesting to see, like, do people go back to Costco after all of this or not? My hope is not, but well, I wonder what we can do as mayors to continue to encourage that.
Yeah, I don't know. We have a whole campaign, #LocalLove, and people are enjoying that a lot, and taking sort of pride of place too. Like, being proud. Like, I think New Brunswick as a province has a bit of an inferiority complex compared to other provinces. So it's allowed people to say, like, first of all, like, until recently, we had no cases of COVID. Like, I don't know if it was luck or good management, but it was well managed. Not badly anyway. Like, it didn't exist here. So we've had a little bit of an outbreak. I think we have a few people right now that have the virus, but not many. And we certainly don't have any new cases, or it's no community spread or anything like that. So that kind of made people go, hey, we did all right on this. Yeah. And I think it just, the pride of place, that sense that, the summer you're going to just be here. So why not make the best of it? Why not explore and get to know your own province? And that hasn't been terrible.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
Well, there's a West Coast thing that happens here. I mean, being on the island, we're surrounded by a moat, so we have this built-in barrier to COVID.
A little bit more beautiful than a moat.
But it's functionally the same thing. I mean, we don't have cool sea dragons, but at any rate, it's kind of kept the COVID away. And with Dr. Bonnie Henry holding our hands through this with the province of BC, we've done, knock wood, remarkably well through this whole thing. But there's always been. I've lived here now for 20 years. Originally, I'm from Halifax, lived in Toronto and Edmonton, and certainly when I would go and visit the bigger cities, there was there was less of a sense of shopping local. It was got to go to Safeway, got to go to Costco because it's cheap, it's convenient. But here in this city, you're kind of looked down on if you don't shop local, if you don't have your local butcher, if you don't have your local baker. Now people go to the grocery stores, obviously, and they do go to Costco, but it's supporting local has always been a strong suit of this community. And you know, I'm connecting this platform of this podcast is very interesting because it's connecting municipal or connecting community leaders coast to coast, and also connecting and sharing ideas for small business to come out of this. But I'm afraid that there's just going to be some casualties, and there's going to be some upside to it, with looking at local people and local resources and saying, let's support them. But, you know, the reality of the situation is there's just going to be some casualties, and it just kind of sucks, but that's it. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. We've already seen them, a couple hot yoga studios, that sort of thing. Yeah. That have already, they're just,
Have you seen anything? Is there anything you've seen or read or heard for small business to be able to come together? Because I do another podcast called The Backbone Small Business Podcast, and its mandate is to help share information and support across disparate communities. So whether it's, you know, Black-owned businesses in the States, First Nations-owned businesses here, or you know, businesses that are sort of more, you know, traditionally Canadian, and how are we getting through it, but all small businesses. So have you heard anything on the streets that has worked beyond what we've already discussed with, you know, putting patios, making streets closed to vehicle traffic?
Well, I mean, a lot more online, even payment methods for sure. That's certainly been a radical change. I have 82-year-old in-laws that are doing e-transfers. I never thought that would be possible. But our Chamber of Commerce has really acted as the catalyst for that in our community, and has really brought the small businesses together. And they've been super active, like webinars and best practices, and certainly sharing all of the you know, the federal government programs and that sort of thing. But beyond that, well, I mean, this is just a little example, but we have something called the Flip Burger Festival, and usually it happens I think it's in January, February. They've decided to do part 2 in a couple weeks, just to kind of get people thinking burgers, getting out, you know, things like that. Because a lot of, I don't know about you, Mayor Helps, but like Canada Day or Acadie Rock, all of our big summer festivals are not happening.
Yeah,
so
same.
That's a huge hit for people.
It is a huge hit. Yeah. I mean, usually when I look out on my office window on any given Friday, there's a festival being set up all summer long, like every weekend. Yeah. I think that's something that we're going to have to really kind of, we're doing an online Canada Day, or not online, with one of our local TV stations. We're doing a Canada Day event, but it's not the same as gathering downtown and watching fireworks and listening to bands. So yeah, I don't think I haven't really thought through kind of the emotional impact of the lack of festivals. I've thought about it from a, you know, small business point of view and kind of a lack of vibrancy point of view, but what's that, you know, what's that going to do? On the flip side, our staff have been totally amazing coming up with really creative programs, and same with our arts community. So on Sunday, there's a group here called Theater Scam, and they've got a theater that's in a truck, and they also do theater performances along bike lanes anyways. And so now they've got this thing called Theater to Go, and we ordered one in our neighborhood, and 4 young women, very talented, pulled up on a flatbed truck, turned it into a theater. We all had our lawn chairs out, and they did a little show for us. So there's like, so, well, I know, it's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, the challenge to where do we go? What will it look like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. I love that idea.
That was pretty good.
Well, and
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, our local theater, you know, is really challenged with that. We just built a $113 million sports and entertainment center that is empty.
Oh.
You know, we had, you know, our basketball and hockey teams. I mean, there's real melancholy around that because we had fantastic teams this year, and, you know, no playoffs, nothing, you know, so that there's grief around it.
Yeah.
People are grieving, you know, and that's really hard. And, you know, the summer festivals, it's going to be really hard too. And as a leader, it's challenging because, you know, people they're like, okay, well, let's get on it. And I don't know about you, but like, I like that. I like the visionary stuff. Like, let's make this happen. Let's think to the future. How can we, you know, put the things in place to make this happen? But not knowing what that future looks like makes it really tough.
It really does. It really does. Yeah. And I mean, I think, we all need to, as challenging as it is, get comfortable with living with uncertainty, and what kind of new things can we learn from going through this really uncertain time. Yeah. It's very challenging to not be able to plan, will we be able to do X in October or January? We don't know. And I think that's hard for everyone.
Yeah, it sure is.
I guess, and the strength of this podcast and these conversations is that we can come together across communities, as opposed to looking for answers from the top down. Because as people have said in this podcast before, the cavalry ain't coming. We've got to do this together. Small business owners, people boots on the ground, municipal leaders. So thank you, Mayor Dawn Arnold from Moncton, New Brunswick. I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on The Mayor Helps.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you again, Dawn. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining The Mayor Helps on Tundra Media. If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And visit themayorhelps.com to submit your questions to the show.